So some of that transactional lower end sales, is that going to be taken over by technology? Probably. It's only a matter of time. But that doesn't mean sales is dead by any means.
Welcome back to the Pursuit of Profit podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dave Mattson, president of franchising and executive chairman of Sandler. Today, we're discussing how Dave started as a client of Sandler in the 80s to becoming the president and largest shareholder, how Sandler became one of the world's leading experts in sales and leadership training. We discussed their incredibly low investment and enviable average revenue numbers. We hope you enjoy the show, and please follow us as we drop new episodes each week on Wednesdays. Really happy to have you here. Of guests, you were probably one of the most distinguished in our profession. So I'm honored to have you on, and I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule. I just learned moments ago, you're actually with your own franchisees at an event, which we could touch on momentarily. But you are the president of now franchising and executive chairman of Sandler. This is a global sales training. I've actually read some of the books back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Go. I think I may be dating myself. But today I want to delve into, I want to touch on a lot of things. And with you, I'm like, where do I go with Dave, right? Do I talk about leadership? Do I talk about sales expertise? Do I talk about the multiple books written? Do I talk about Sandler and the decades of them influencing business and business leaders and salespeople across the globe? So I said, you know what? I'm going to delve into his expertise in sales, leadership, and I want to get your perspective on personal growth, the evolution of sales training. You said something that took me back because I would not have agreed with this. Salespeople and sales managers are made, not born. Decade ago, if someone said to me, do you think you could teach this? No. Yeah. Like, you're born with this, right? Talk about that a little bit. Talk about your background, how you got to Sandler. And of course, I definitely want to touch on that quote because I think it's pretty profound.
So I was actually, I grew up in a household of teachers. So nobody was in the profession of a business of any kind. I kind of bumped into it. I think like most of us bump into a career, there was an opportunity that happened. I was an entrepreneur at a very young age. We didn't have a lot of money. So, my parents are, you can have anything that you'd like, but you're going to have to find a way to get it. And so, shoveling driveways and all that type of stuff. I owned a painting company through college and did quite well. I had 11 crews going. Wow. And then I realized I just didn't want to be in that business. I didn't want to be 65 out there, painting houses. And so what I did was I worked for a neighbor of mine who happened to be a Sandler client. And they forced me to go, to be honest, because I didn't think I was, if you take all the profiles, I shouldn't be in the profession I'm in, according to, what they say.
Unreal.
And, in order to be hired by that company, I had to join Sandler. And so I was a typical hostage in the back of the room, Cliff. The guys that you send who are sitting there trying to figure out how to get out for the second day and not show up and tell their employer that they were there, that type of guy.
That was you?
Right. Yeah, well, that was definitely me.
That's great.
I thought if you worked harder than anyone else, you would make more money than anyone else. That was always my philosophy. And so, but I learned, though, Sandler was based on psychology. And once I figured that out, and then I didn't have to be what Hollywood portrayed as salespeople, slick and manipulative and things of that nature, I was like, okay, all right. Basically, I'm selling all day long. I'm selling my friends on what I'd like to do for the weekend because I have a different agenda, and back then I wasn't married. But I realized if I could just create some guardrails, and the reason I loved Sandler was because it wasn't a script-based program. It was a conversational-based program. And he had rules, just like spelling I before E except after C and all the other things that we've learned. He just said, listen, if you're in this situation, think about it this way, because to script every situation was impossible. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with it. I practiced because, as being an introvert, I didn't want to make sure I had all my talk tracks down. And I joined the person who trained me. About 2 years into it, I became the number one salesperson. And I was like, hey, in order to become a machine, maybe I should work for the machine. And I went to sell Sandler for 2 years up in Connecticut, met Dave Sandler. By then I was all in, right? And by the way, I didn't use Sandler initially. I only used Sandler the very first time when a deal was going south. You've never been in that situation where there's no way you're closing this deal.
Yep. And you go into your toolbox.
Yep. Exactly. And I said, hey, let me use one of those Sandler things, because if it doesn't work, it's Sandler's fault. But it worked. And that's it. And the next thing you know, I was using it all. So I saw Dave Sandler, as I said, when I worked for a local franchise. Um, and of course, I loved the system. He said one day, I'm looking for people to help me scale. And next thing I was at home office. So I went from Connecticut down to Maryland and spent 6 years with David before he passed, and it
Unreal.
became a 25% owner very quickly, and then ended up owning, buying out the rest of the family basically over a period of about 10 years. I bought the rest of the family out and became the sole stockholder in 2012.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Hmm.
I did not know that. Interesting. All right.
Yep.
So you bought the family out
I bought the
because he
family out.
died. He died in the 80s or 90s?
He died in 95. So I became
95, right.
a part owner in 94. I was his protege. And so it was awesome when he was alive. But when you're a non-family member and I am his protege and not one of his children, it was a bit of a problem, as you can imagine, when he passed. So, I just worked hard, kept my head down, and started buying everybody out. And that's what I did.
Unreal.
And so, yeah, I ended up being the sole stockholder from 2012 all the way up to 2022 when I took some chips off the table.
Okay. Okay. You went through all the name changing and
Hmm.
simplifying
Hmm.
Sandler selling system to Sandler.
Hmm.
They had Institute in it, and then
Hmm.
I love the cleanliness, by the way, of what you've done.
Thank you.
It's just Sandler now, right? It was Sandler Training, but aren't you Sandler?
We went from Sandler Sales Institute. The day I took over, I changed it to Sandler Training. And then we changed it to Sandler because everyone knows us as Sandler. No one says
That's
Sandler Sales Institute. No one says
it's so
Sandler
true.
Training. And we do more than training. So it was just natural.
That's great. So you're a living example of the quote that salespeople and sales managers are made;
Yeah.
they're not born. Like you truly believe that to your core,
Were you born doing what you're doing today? I don't know. Are doctors born
right?
doctors? I think you have some natural tendencies, but that doesn't mean that it just takes more energy. It takes more energy for me to go on stage. It takes more energy for me to do things. Doesn't mean I can't do it. And I think if you just go into it, that mindset, oh, I can't do that. I wasn't born there. Look around. I don't think anyone was born anywhere. I think they just made the most of an
Right.
opportunity and they went forward. Now, do some have to work harder because it's just not in their swing zone? Sure. But there's an awful lot of things that come naturally to me as an entrepreneur that may not come natural to a born salesperson. And so it kind of levels out after a while. But I don't use it as an excuse and I just don't believe it.
I'm in a weird spot with you because I want to talk about the book and the core principles, right? But
Yeah.
I also, for the show, I need the audience to understand that you are a franchise opportunity. People can invest in this brand, right? So I'm a little
Correct.
bit conflicted. I think what I want to do today is I want to get some of the franchising housekeeping out of the way. And I'd
Okay.
like to just spend some time picking your brain on like the upfront contract, the techniques, the psychology, the dummy curve. I have personally grown through uh, what was it? You can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a
Like a
seminar,
seminar.
webinar, or
Yeah.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I actually learned negative selling from that.
Uh-huh.
I never understood the concept. I thought it was odd, and also no, like no, the whole
Hmm.
concept
No,
of
it's
no.
okay.
I was always a young person in sales and in business. I was an investment banker in my
Okay.
20s. I was like the youngest guy in the room. And I worked for Solomon Smith Barney, which was a old staunchy firm.
Exactly.
And I always felt like I had to be smart. Well,
Yeah.
guess
You had
what? The dummy curve is real. Tell us about the franchise opportunity. Tell us about the investment, who you're looking for, because I will tell you, I've been doing this 20 years. People think that they need to be you to do this. Is that true? Like, are you looking for you? Tell us a little bit
Mm.
about who you're looking for as a franchisee and some of the economics.
Okay. So because of what we do, we have a whole program just for entrepreneurs, taking their business from where they are and sales leadership and then sales. So I'm looking for business people. I'm not looking for, a rock'em sock'em salesperson. Of course, it's great, but I'm looking for somebody that wants to build a business,
Okay.
that is willing to roll up their sleeves and in some cases go backwards in time, meaning that you're going to have to carry a bag and make a call. I mean, we don't have a franchise where you pick the right corner and hopefully, you're on the right side of the traffic lane.
Right.
You got to go develop the business. And so what we're looking for people who, make good money before they come to us, are willing to do what it takes. We create, we give you the guidelines, we give you the recipe, we do all those things. We assign a coach for you, but the investment is $49,000 to get involved. And there's the fees are a slight monthly fee, and then there's a small royalty. But I just gave out, with our conference, I just gave out 5 over 30-year plaques. That's how long people have been with us
Wow.
as franchises. And that's why I do this every
Wow.
conference. It's amazing. I've known most of these franchisees longer than I've known my children, if you just kind
Wow.
of put it into context for a second. And so we're getting people of different ages, different experiences. But in general, I think it would be nice if you had management and sales background. But I've got top producers that didn't have that were sponges and did exactly what they were told, and made it. But I think I've got somebody who does, I just gave her an award, no sales background, but she only does customer service and customer success. That's her swing zone. Is she ever going to go and talk to an investment banker? Probably not, right? But because we have so many different programs with so many different avenues, it doesn't really matter.
You've heard from some incredible franchise brands right here on the podcast. If you're sitting there wondering which opportunity might be the right fit for you, we're here to help. At Franchisee, we offer free consulting services to aspiring small business owners just like you. We'll guide you through a focused, strategic process to help you identify the best franchise match. Call or text us at 561-277-3710 or visit us on the web at franchisee.com. That's FRANOCITY.com. We look forward to working with you. Okay. So entrepreneur, follow my system, very low investment. They don't need to be a rock star, prolific salesperson. Helps, but not a requirement. Yeah.
No.
Can you build a team? Can you follow my system? Can you execute flawlessly? Can you do all these things? Man, that's a really low investment. That's the all-in? That's the all-in investment?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Describe that territory for that investment. And then you come on with a lower investment than what we launched last week.
The state by which you reside is your territory. It'll be a non-exclusive. You can work outside. Open. So hypothetically, let's say that you're in the state of California, as an example. You can market anywhere that you'd like in California or in the state that you're in. You can have salespeople, you can have support people. What you can't do outside the state that you reside in is actively market, like just blast, start just blasting. That doesn't mean that you can't, work your natural referral market. You can leave your territory, and they all do, anytime that you'd like, as long as you're referred in. Because let's just face what happens. You're doing work with company A, an HVAC company or a tech company, and they say, this is awesome. We need you to call on our client or go call on our home mothership, the home office. And now you're working off referrals, because that's really what happens. You're going to have a baseline where you got to go find the clients. If you do your job and you really increase the productivity of that person in that company, man, you're on referrals from that point forward. So you're all over the place. I was in Dallas a couple of years ago, and just coincidentally, I looked back and we had 3 franchisees standing in line to check in, all doing programs for Dallas-based companies, and none of them lived in Dallas. So you can go where you'd like, but you can't really, you can't actively prospect outside of the territory that you have.
Understand.
Yeah.
Earnings claim, item 19.
So 22, 23, we're not done with 24 yet. The overall for 22 is 825. Our high was 5.3. In 23, it was 736 is our average. And our high is 5.5 mil.
Wow. That's disclosed in the FDD.
And a lot of these are, you don't need a whole big staff. We have a lot of people who are what I'll call solo entrepreneurs. They're by themselves. They came out of corporate. They don't want to babysit. They don't want to do any of that stuff. They don't have a salesperson. They're by themselves. Yes, will they get an admin or somebody to help them? Probably at the end of the first year, because they want to scale themselves. If they don't, we have plenty of resources where they can have a shared resource, not a problem. But for the most part, our people are building small businesses. They have, 1 or 2 support people when they're just flying along. We probably have 50% of them have a salesperson along with that, because they're trying to build a business. Right. I've got 2 groups of people. I've got a group that wants to build a business, wants to build something they can sell, right? Those are the people on the higher end. I've got another group that really just comes in and says, I want to make more than I'm making now. I want to make an impact, right? And help people grow, because it's my chance to give back, also do something I'm super passionate about, control my destiny. but I don't really want to build this empire. I want to go, I want to go coach my kids when I want to. I control my own calendar. And that's a bit of a challenge for home office if you think about it. I'd love everybody building a monument for themselves and hiring, 5 or 6 salespeople, but that's just not the person I attract.
Right. That's wild. I'm still digesting the fact that 36 years ago, you were a customer, you were a
Yeah,
client, and now you own the
I was a
company.
client.
It's mind blowing, really. It's like
Yeah,
that Cy Sperling. Remember that guy with the hair club for men?
yeah,
I'm not only
yeah.
a,
Or Gillette,
yeah,
or the
right.
razor.
That's right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's funny.
I am
I,
that
I
guy.
am I am amazed at that low investment, such a high average revenue per location in the FDD. That's mind blowing. And some truly outlier rock stars in the 5 million range.
Yeah, 50,000 people come through our system a year. That's how many clients are coming through our system a year. We're in 31 countries, so 50. Yeah, it's 50,000 globally,
Wow.
and the majority of our offices are in the U.S.
When someone goes to training, what is the what is the direction when you leave this room? We taught you everything you need to know about this business. Of course, there's ongoing. I get it, but
Mm-hmm.
you have completed basic training. What is the guidance on go back to your market and hunt this vertical first? Like cut your teeth here. What is that directive?
It's not a vertical, it's the size of business because we've got
Okay.
so many different verticals, if you can imagine. So it's really your swing zone are companies that are doing under 150 million.
Okay.
Really, if you want to really, the companies that you're really attracting are companies doing under 50 million. You're in a 2-week sales cycle, 2-call close. It's kind of simple. So that's really, and when we go out and say, create a charter program where go find 20 business owners, just get them involved, give it to them. Don't try to pick them off one at a time. Give it to them, start, get it going. And what you'll find is it works off referrals. And so that's really what we're helping you do is to say, here's how you get your first 2 programs up and running. Here's how you fill that first class. And it is going to be business owners and sales leaders. You're going to discount your price on purpose because I want you to jumpstart it, because I want you to feel like, hey, I'm in business, and I'm not looking around like, oh my gosh, I can't pay my
Right.
bills, but you feel like a business owner, the momentum's going, and then the referral machine kicks in. So that's really what we're focused in on is what do you do in the first 90 days? We're not going to be trained. Listen, we're a training company. So if we can't train you, we got problems. I mean, in fairness, right? So
Right.
we're really focused in on what do you need to do in the first 90 to 90 days, 6 months in order for you to just rock it, because we're assigning you a coach, that we're talking to you 2-3 times a week. You're in cohorts. We're nurturing you through that whole process. So we don't want to overwhelm you when you come to initial training at all.
Okay. All right. So there's marching orders when they go home. There's a
Oh yeah.
sweet spot to the small, mid-size, large companies. Go after this market. Here's their revenue, blank to blank. And that's who they target right out of the gate. Reduce the package price, get in the door, and start creating that momentum, like you said. All right. I like that.
Yeah, just for the first 20 clients, and I've got a newer person who came out of corporate enterprise. That's all he sold his whole life, enterprise. Okay, so he's not going to follow that recipe, to be honest.
Okay.
He's going to go after all of his, buddies. He knows and CROs, and he knows that's a longer selling cycle. So, but he's prepared. But I also have a program where we'll go and help you sell those deals. So he's actually referring all of those deals to us initially, so he can watch the process. And that way, he's also working on this local business as he's leveraging his larger contacts initially, like right away, while they're still employed at that company, and he still has a great relationship with them. So there's a lot of different models, but that's the model that we try to S&B. Stay in the small to medium-sized business. Don't go after the big elephants. No one pays attention to a company with 5 or 6 salespeople. There's just nobody paying attention to them, and they're super loyal. Where you used to work, loyalty is to the quarterly budget and bonuses, not to who's helping to grow. We've got clients that have been with us for 15, 20 years. So they don't go anywhere. Our average client stays with us for 7 years. They have a lot of needs throughout those 7 years. They give you a lot of referrals. So it's we just need to help you nest in the industry that in the cycle. You've got referrals locally, whatever the case may be. But we assume that nobody locally. That's our assumption. So our marketing machine takes over and really helps build that brand as if you were here for 20 years.
Okay. I was going to ask you, what is the retention, the average length of stay, if you will, of a client? It's long, longer than I
It's long.
thought.
Yeah, it's
Very
long.
long, 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's all different, it's all different programs. It's like, listen, in year one, we were doing sales, then we did leadership,
Yeah.
and then we did all these different modules. Don't you have like hundreds of different teaching, I call them programs?
Yeah, we have hundreds of them. If you think about anyone that touches revenue in your company, we've got programs for them. You can have a BD for a business developer. They're setting appointments, got a whole program for them. And then you've got a sales course, you've got enterprise sales, right? You've got advanced stuff, negotiating classes, virtual selling program. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The value of Sandler to a company that's growing, that has multiple people helping generate revenue, is it's a common language. Because if you really think about what goes on, sales managers are sent to this course for sales management training, and then you've got your enterprise, your elephant hunters out there doing that program, and then you've got your transactional sales course people over there going through a different course. How do you scale? But if you're going through Sandler, you can go through each part of your career and still have the same philosophies applied differently, and that's the magic. The majority of people that we have two sides of the business. We have S&B, and then we have enterprise. Almost 100% of our enterprise business is coming from past S&B clients that have kind of moved up, gone to Google. Yeah, they went to Salesforce, they went to wherever. And next thing you know, you're training, that particular company. And that's the magic.
This is my personal opinion. So I've been in franchise sales, let's say over 20 years. I have seen year after year after year, I feel as if there's a decline in the quality of the salesperson and the sales process. Are you seeing in society, because you're working the globe, are you seeing some type of deterioration in the quality of the salesperson? I'm just picking one profession. What are you seeing? What is your opinion?
I would say that there's a declining quality of sales leadership. I think sales leadership is the hardest job in any company. I think most owners, most C-suite thinks, let's go find our top producer, we'll make him a sales leader, and just replicate yourself. That does not work. And so because there's no training, there's no mentoring for sales leaders, salespeople, the quality of salespeople have declined. Why? And that's a general statement. I'm sure I'm going to get 1,000 hate mails now. But in general, I think we also rely too much on technology, right? People still buy from people, and they're going to buy from people who you like. Now, can I get away with not, call reluctance if I would have an AI bot making my outbound calls? Sure. Can I use technology to do some other things? Sure. But that's not a scapegoat for me practicing. And I think that's the other thing. There's no roadmap for salespeople to get from where they are today to where they would like to be without some formal program. How many times have you heard a salesperson say, I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm good. I don't need that.
That's right.
You know what? If my surgeon said that, I'd be in trouble.
That's right.
I'd be in trouble. I don't want the medical industry to say that. Like, why would we say that? And there's no certification outside. We have it, but there's no industry certification that keeps people learning in the industry. And so we tend to focus more on product training versus interaction, and how do you progress deals, and how do you talk to people, and how do you overcome these objections, and all those things that are based on people and psychology, not my product is better than your product. We've all lost deals to inferior products. You were outsold. I mean, let's just face it, you were outsold.
Definitely.
And I think that's really the challenge that we have moving forward, is the onslaught of technology since 2020 is becoming so confusing in the marketplace. Now it'll settle down, but the buyer journey has changed dramatically because the sellers can use technology, but so can the buyers, right? So the buyer probably has already researched your company, researched your competitors, researched their problem, and that's different than let me bring value to the table by telling you about our product and service. They already know that now. That's table stakes. Now you've got to bring something else to the table. And I don't think people are equipped to shift now. And the world is changing. So some of that transactional lower end sales, is that going to be taken over by technology? Probably. It's only a matter of time. But that doesn't mean sales is dead by any means.
Oh, not at all. If anything, there's more demand to hone your skills and be the best that you could be. We do live in a highly specialized society, and you better be the best. And we do live in a time where people want to connect. And I think that's one of your secret sauces. It's the psychology. No one wants, the Wolf of Wall Street on the telephone. Remember one of the scenes where he wants to become a stockbroker and he's cold calling people and he goes, drop your fork and grab a pen. I got a hot stock tip for you. Right. So it's like people thought, to your point a moment ago, people thought like that's selling. Right? The Wolf of Wall Street, watching them on TV, or Boiler Room. Or Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross. No, that's not. And then there's you. In comes Sandler saying, we kind of flipped the script. We base this on psychology. We do more of a needs analysis. Talk about what makes you different, not only from Hollywood scenes, but from other programs. What makes you different?
A couple things. One, I think that it is based on psychology. I think it is based on the fact that we're not for everybody, and you should go into it with that mentality. You're not going to convince everybody of everything. And by the way, you're better off if you don't, right? I think it's mutual discovery. I think salespeople should have equal business stature, right? Think about yourself as a doctor of sales. Do doctors say, "Whoa, Cliff, before you say anything, let me show you my degrees. Let me show you my building." No, that's not what they do. They say, "Cliff, why are you here? Hey, tell me a little bit about that." Right? Hey, so what have you done to try to fix it? Have you been heat, cold? What are you doing? So it's more of a discovery process with the ability for us to mutually agree whether we should continue talking or not. And no is okay. Everything that we teach, first of all, we believe in reinforcement. I don't think you can learn from a fire hose. I think you can't learn just from watching a video or doing those things. I'm a golfer and I'm a hacker. I mean, I'm shooting about 120 in the first 9, so I'm that guy. And so could I go and read a book and do a video? Sure. Is it going to improve my game? No. So I do think, that's our thing. But everything we teach is around what we call the success triangle, which is mindset, behaviors, and techniques. So let's pick an example, prospecting. So we're going to teach you the prospecting techniques. We are known for actionable tactics and strategies. Here's our claim to fame. One of them is we're going to teach you what to do. Go get the decision maker. And here's how you do it. Most programs are go get the decision maker.
Right. But they don't teach you how to even get past the gatekeeper. Right.
I don't know what to do. What to do. So it's then here comes the how. That's the magic there. Now, when you go to the success triangle, it's here are the tactics and strategies, what you say, how you say it, when you say it. Behaviors is how often should I be doing these types of activities? Because if I only do it once a year, it's not going to have any impact. And no one wants to make prospecting calls every day. But if I can just take a little each day, I've got to do 4 each day. I can do that. And so it's a behavioral plan. And then it's mindset up top, which is why is it important? And fear of rejection, call reluctance. I do have equal business stature. I do bring value. I can call on you, even though you make more money than I am and you're older than I am and you know your industry better than I do, but I know my product better than you do. And that's where I have equal business stature, all that stuff. But if you just teach techniques, we've all been to a seminar, you get pumped up, you go right back down and nothing changes. Yeah. And so to have change and sustain change, we believe that's the magic. And that's really what we do. And because we're with other people, think about how we bring you into our program is it's not just one-on-one company, although we do that. You're going to be in a program with different industries, different experiences, different incomes, and your blinders get blown off. Because if I were to show up just as let's say a tech salesperson, and Sandler gave me a technique, they would say, "Oh, I don't know if that works in my industry." No, that doesn't work in my industry.
Right.
But yet I've got somebody else in the same industry selling different types of tech, let's say, who's been using it for 2 years, blowing me away financially. I'm like, well, wait a minute now. How do you use that? So that's really the magic.
You're great at it, man. Man, you have a ton of energy, great energy. You love it. I mean, all the 36 years later, like you're still doing this. What are you doing right now? You mentioned something like, hey, I'm not in a studio. I'm with franchisees. What are you doing right now?
So we have our conferences and we have regional meetings where the people get together regionally, and then we have international conferences. And so we have tracks, depending on the topic, depending on how much money you're making, so we can get you to the next level if you'd like to, awards, all that stuff. So I've been with franchisees now for the last 4 or 5 days. It's been fantastic.
It's great. Good for you.
Yeah.
A lot of C-level people, they lose the fire. over time, right? They just lose that high energy level, the passion. Like they basically forgot where they came from and what
They
got them
forgot.
started in a business, and they're starting to like, phase out. Man, you're still on fire. It's great to see. I love
Thank
it.
you.
I want to talk a little bit about uh, the the core principles, and I want to touch on
Hmm.
your book a little bit.
Okay.
The one thing I want to understand is because I get the psychology, completely agree with
Hmm.
it. What's the upfront contract technique? What are you trying to achieve there?
Well, I think as salespeople, we've all been in the following situation. Um, we started a call and we thought we had an hour because we set that appointment 3 weeks ago. And come to find out, you're my prospect as an example. Midway through, you say, "Hey, Dave, this sounds interesting, but really there's a lot of stuff going on. I only have like 25 minutes. So could you just put this in writing and send it off to me?" Now, I think it's a huge win. You asked me for something. That's
Hmm.
horrific. So we've all experienced that. Or I just say, "Hey, Cliff, thanks for jumping on today. Hey, let me just start off." And then I'm blowing and going. I have no idea what you want to get out of the call. Time is
Hmm.
precious, right? But what do they want to get out of the call? You don't know as a seller, right? I'm a seller. As the buyer, you're like, "Well, where's Dave going today? Like, what's the goal of the call today?" So they typically don't share their agenda as a salesperson. The biggest one is we get off the call or we wait until the last 3 minutes, Cliff, and we say, "Okay, listen, I'll send you something. Well, let's get another appointment." But I think we should be doing a couple things right away before the call even starts going is validate time, right? So basically, an upfront contract is setting a mutual agreement about what's going to
Hmm.
happen during our interaction. So that's the definition, right? So what's going to
Got it.
happen? And if it
Love
is a
it.
conversation, you should know where we're going, what we're talking about as the buyer, and so as I should the seller. Otherwise, it's you're trying to figure out what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, right? And so, like, why did he ask me that question? Is that a qualifying question? What is that? I mean, how does that work? So if you want to lower that buyer seller defensive wall, just tell people what you're trying to do. And if they'll either say, "I'm in or I'm out." So how much time do we still have for today?
Hmm.
Um, what's the purpose of today? That's a big one, right? Because even though I think as the seller that you've been waiting for this call all week, you just looked up my name again on Outlook.
That's
You have
right.
no idea. You're like, "Who's this guy again?" Here's what I'd like to cover today as the seller. Here are the 2 or 3 things that I'd like to find out. Cliff, as the buyer, what are the 2 or 3 things that you want to make sure that we cover to best utilize your time? So
Hmm.
now I've got both agendas out. Because if you don't do that, what I find is that the buyer doesn't really listen because they're trying to get their question in, right? They're like, "Hey, I've got like 2 questions I got to get answered today from this guy in order to decide if it's something I want to pursue." But if I don't know that, then A, maybe you don't bring it up. And B, maybe I'm not covering the right things. And the last thing, most important, is what are we trying to decide today? What are we trying to decide today? So it could sound like, if that was it, was say, "Hey, Cliff, I did the upfront contract. What I found at the end is we could probably go in a couple different directions." Well, first of all, there may not be a fit. And that's okay. If you find
Right.
that, hey, what I deliver and what you're needing, there's a disconnect, let's just call it for what it is. We'll save each other some time moving forward. On the other hand, we may decide that there is a fit. In that case, I'd like to schedule another meeting. I'm going to bring in an expert. It may make sense for you to bring in a couple people. I don't know, but we'll talk about that. Let's spend about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the call just to kind of figure out where we are and what are some of the next steps. But my goal would be to set another time for us to connect again. Do you think about it? You do this in business meetings. You hand out
Right.
an agenda, don't
Right.
you? If you're doing an offsite meeting, everyone knows the agendas, they know the times. Why don't we do that on a sales call? It
That's
just
right.
blows my mind. Blows my
It's
mind.
so I love it. I also love focus on pain rather than the features. I love that.
Hmm.
And talk to us about the dummy curve. This is something I personally experienced, but just for the audience, drill down on dummy curve concept. I think this is fascinating.
So we actually changed the name to Curiosity Curve.
Okay.
Okay. We got a lot of pushback on the dummy curve
You
name.
did?
But
Damn it.
yeah, finally, I don't know. After 40 years, we kind of changed it. But the curve is this. People don't argue with their own data, right? If you say it, people deny it as a seller. But if the buyer says it, it's true. So if you really think about that for a minute, I have a ton of product knowledge like a doctor does. I'm
Right.
sure the doctor's heard a million times what you're saying, but then you don't show up to a doctor and say, "I've got a back pain." What? I know what that is. Don't even say
Right.
another word. No, they are curious. Like, we're in the back. Like, how long have you had the problem? What's going on? And by doing that, the buyer is now becoming emotionally involved because they're describing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, this person understands. This person, there's a connection. And as a seller, because I am asking the question, therefore I'm gathering a lot of information, developing trust, credibility by the questions that I'm asking. Because I also think the value of a salesperson is determined by the questions they ask, not the information they dispense. And if you think about that for a second, it's true in the medical industry and it's true here. So the curiosity curve is just don't show up and throw up all this stuff.
Right.
Ask some questions. There's nothing anyone could say that I don't know. Okay, that's true. Except that you sell what you sell every day. They buy what you're selling once in a while.
That's right.
So let them experience it. And Cliff, what I found is those 25-year experienced people, they may not have 25 years experience. Sometimes they have 1 year's experience 25 times.
Right.
They haven't grown.
Right. That's right. I know. I love these people that tell me I've been doing this for 30 years. And it's like, man, you've been doing something wrong for 30 years, or you haven't grown. You haven't honed your skill. When's the last time you read a book? When's the last time you went to a Sandler like you said before, I've been doing this 20 years. I don't need that. You know what's interesting about those folks? When those guys go through the program, they're the ones on YouTube saying, I would be so much wealthier today had I known this 20, 30 years ago. People are in their own way. Remain open-minded, play in traffic, you'll get hit. If you're invited to Sandler through your company, go. If you're invited to anything to grow, go.
There's three things that our clients will tell us. And one is, I wish I met you 20 years ago. You would have changed my career. Second thing that they say to us is, I use this in my personal life as much as my business life. Because if it is based on psychology and it is conversational, you should be using this all the time.
Definitely.
And then the third thing that I hear is, I want my kids to go through it because I don't want my kids to go through the 20 years of what I did. Why not let them start where I am right now? And we've got multiple generation clients sitting in programs all day long.
This gives you coping techniques in a relationship, compromising techniques. That old saying, it's seek to understand before being understood. Use this as, well, what are you experiencing? What's your issue with it? Why don't you like it? Right. Absolutely. I could totally see this bleeding into your personal life big time.
I've got 5 children and, I think we're a better family for it, to be honest, using Sandler. So, it's questioning and it's understanding why they're acting certain ways and that all my kids are not the same because every buyer's different too. All that stuff just bleed through.
Tell me about the negative reverse selling technique.
I would, but I don't know if most people think that works.
Really? Is that right? I'm shocked to hear that.
So, and you just saw it happen, right? Witnessed it. I said it to you.
That's wild. Oh, I love it. I was going to say Dwyer Group, which is now Neighborly. Yeah. This is their entire sales process. They're always walking away from the deal. Like they built $1 billion brand on.
I know.
Yes.
Because if you said, hey, Dave, tell me about negative selling. Oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Most people are like, well, Dave, I don't know about the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if I said, I don't know, a lot of people may not think it works. What? That's it? Because here's why. That's psychology at its best. I'm sorry. But what happens is, my opinion, as a salesperson, you ask a lot of positive questions, you're going to get negative responses. It's just because people don't want to be trapped. Right. You ask slightly negative questions, you tend to get people saying, well, wait a minute now. Oh, wait a minute. And so the takeaway is, if you allow me to take something away, you weren't a prospect and it's okay. But if you really were interested and I do a slight takeaway, you'd be like, wait a minute, wait, hold on for a second. And now we're back in the game. And so I think the best way to start a call sometimes is to end a call. No, it sounds pretty dramatic. But I've closed more deals when somebody says, look, we're perfectly happy. We're doing, we're working with XYZ company. I'm like, that's awesome. Hey, listen, before I go, can I ask you a couple questions? Like, yeah, sure. Close my notebook in the old days when I'm face to face and all that stuff. And then it starts. So I think it's, if you're comfortable talking and not dealing with your product knowledge and just saying, it's okay if it's not for us. If it's not, you'll find out quickly. And I think a no is okay, by the way. Right. The faster we can determine that it's not for you, the better off we are.
Yeah. Time
Instead
is
of looking
valuable.
at your funnel. Look at your funnel.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff's been in people's funnel for so long. It's got electricity and running water. That's how long it's been in there.
Right.
It's just ridiculous.
Right.
So I'd rather just say, at the end, if we're having like this, this wishy-washy conversation, I'd say, hey, listen, Cliff, as I said earlier, we're not for everybody. I get the feeling, although it's interesting, this may not be the right time for you.
Right.
How do you feel? Just subtle things like that.
Start selling you on, no,
Like,
everything
wait,
is good.
no,
I'm sorry.
I don't
I was
know. Why would
distracted.
you?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Why would you say that? No, I'm very
Yeah.
engaged. I need you at my annual conference in
Yeah.
3 months. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or even the subtle ones when somebody calls in a referral and say, hey, Dave, I've heard awesome things about Sandler. This is great. What could you do for me? I always start with, well, first of all, I appreciate you calling, Cliff. That's awesome. And you heard that from your friend Sam. But Sam's issues could be different than your issues. I'm not sure we would have the same results. I'm not even sure, we're talking about the same types of things. Can we spend a couple minutes maybe and just kind of share with me what you're experiencing? And we can kind of determine if I could have the same types of impact that we've had with Sam, because I'm not sure we can, it's replicatable right now. Instead of saying, oh yeah, Sam, we could do, let me tell you what we did for Sam. We'll do the same thing for you, buddy.
Yeah.
It's all that.
Right.
When you attack, hey, do you remember you did the taxi thing for me? Do you remember in the carnivals, they used to have that finger thing? You put it in the thing. If you pull, it's the exact out. You couldn't get your fingers out of it.
Oh, that's right. Right.
I think it was called the Chinese. Yeah, it's a Chinese handcuffs back then.
Chinese
I don't know
handcuffs.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, but if that's really what happens in sales, if you just go do the exact opposite behavior that a prospect expects of you, and you will get the opposite response.
Right.
So you don't want to look like a salesperson, don't act like a salesperson.
Right.
And therefore you'll find that you're going to get different conversations, and you get closer to the truth, which is really all of our goals, buyer and seller.
This stuff is just invaluable. And you know what, even for the 20, 30 year veteran, I had a favorite line when I was managing some teams. People don't need to be told, they need to be reminded. And I love that you rewrote, I want to plug your book.
Thanks.
You basically wrote the Sandler rules, the 49 timeless selling principles, and how to apply them to your profession, your business. I want to talk about a couple right out of your book, which I think is a must read, top seller. I commend you for writing it and modernizing it a little bit, right? You updated the rules from the 80s, if you will. Yeah. Talk to me about don't spill your candy in the lobby. Love this one. Rule 25.
So don't spill your candy in the lobby is, think about it in a sales situation, which is we all kind of just show up and throw up, right? Hey, let me tell you a bit about our company. Let me tell you about our industry. Let me tell you how wonderful we are and all the awards that we've won. No one cares. All they want to know is, let me tell you about my issue. Do you understand the issue? Do I trust that you can fix my issue? And how would you fix my issue? And so don't spill your candy in the lobby is, I'll go back to the doctor thing. Here's an example of spilling your candy in the lobby. Okay. Hey doc, I got a back pain. What? Let me show you all my degrees. Let me show you all this wonderful multi-million-dollar equipment that I have and all those things.
Too much.
That's not what happens.
Right.
No, people buy emotionally and justify intellectually. That's intellectual. And so the emotional is tell me a little bit about 2 or 3 things that you're experiencing, holding you back from where you'd like to be. And so I want to gather, I want to ask. It's almost like salespeople, if we were sued for malpractice, this would be easy, but we're not sued for malpractice. Right. We're not really trying to figure out what your problem is as a buyer. We're trying to convince you that I'm an awesome company and you're going to love me. But here's the problem. If you ask any company, and I do this at workshops, hey, what are the top 3 reasons why people should buy from you? People say service, they'll say this, they say that. I mean, what would be the top 3 reasons a salesperson would say, do you think, just off the top of your head, Cliff? Top 3 reasons why I would buy from that company. What would a normal salesperson say? Reputation, service,
right? We're
product.
Honest, we're going to deliver. We under promise and over deliver. Right. The best product in the market.
Right. So by the way, I hate to tell you, but you've been fired. So now you don't work for that company anymore.
Right.
And now you work for their competitor. And you just went through 6 months of awesome training. And you met a prospect. And the prospect says, hey, what are the top 3 reasons I should buy from you? Don't you think they say the same thing?
Yeah.
They all sound the same. They all sound the same. So I think it's that mentality of just don't gather, gather is
That's
really
right.
that rule.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned before about no, like not being afraid of, just touch on that a little bit. I think we love the number 11 here. That was
Mm-hmm.
rule number 11.
hmm So I think the no, I think sales leaders, you should give your team the same amount of accolades for a yes and a no, really. Because what we do want to do is focus on those who can, that we can help and they have a problem that we can solve, not
Right.
anything else. So when you go for the no, I think it's much easier because you're saying it's okay. We're not for everybody. Let's just mutually figure this out. But if you keep pushing for a yes, you tend to get the no's. If I'm
Yeah.
okay with a no, and I even suggest maybe it doesn't fit, I tend to get realistic responses and more yeses, quite frankly. So I think switch it. A no is okay. I even think mentally, if you think about prospecting for a minute, everyone's looking for the appointment. I'm not looking for the appointment. I'm
Right.
doing X amount of behaviors. I'm just looking for a no's. A no's okay because I know in my world, I need 20 no's to get one yes. So why look for the yeses? Just keep
Right.
moving. Oh, I got
Right.
18 no's today. Two more. I'm going to get a yes. So it's that whole mentality that's an okay thing to get a no. But I think, when you go into business, yes is it. You only want a yes or you're a failure. And I don't think that's the way it works.
Right. Right. Okay. Well said. The brand's been around 50 years, right?
Yeah, David actually started way back in 67 in the seminar business, like with the Ziegler routines, right? So all
Yeah.
that stuff. And then really, he brought a couple things to the marketplace. Reinforcement training was a Sandler. The word pain came from Sandler.
Hmm.
And so all of that stuff was just designed just because he was way ahead of his time.
Right.
He really was way ahead of his time. But yeah, it's been around. We franchised in 1984.
Wow. How many franchisees globally?
There's over 200 now.
200. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Open territory. Love the
Yep.
investment range. Anything new, meaning innovative, we've added, we're doing something different. We live in a world of AI. We talked about the deterioration of leadership in the
Mm-hmm.
country. Sales leadership, honestly, everywhere has deteriorated over the years. There's no more Hughes. There's no more, Lee
Right.
Iacocca's, and I haven't seen a
Mm-hmm.
Jack Welch in a long time.
Right.
So we're just different now. What's going on with you and your company? Are you implementing different things to address these cultural and societal changes?
Yeah, so lots of different things. We're certainly on the low lying fruit stuff, virtual selling, virtual leadership, all that stuff, because most companies aren't getting together any longer. So we've got that whole program.
Okay.
On the AI front, as an example, we have embedded AI into our learning system. So as an example, if you took an assessment with us and it said you had the following 5 gaps from a sales skills perspective, I hope your manager coaches you. And we'll do things, but it also, when you take that assessment, it automatically loads those programs into your online learning path. So when you sign in, it says, hey, Cliff, here are the 5 things that you had gaps on. Let's attack those quickly, above and beyond what the trainer's doing, right? Above and beyond. We have AI role play bots now. So if I taught the
Wow.
upfront contract like we did,
Wow.
you would actually practice in real life on a video or audio, and the bot's actually playing a prospect. And we can have a generic just practice the technique. But if you worked for, let's say, a manufacturing company, you get to type in, we do, or the manager types in the scenarios, or hey, they're rude, they're working with XYZ company, whatever the case may be. And it's really role playing with you, and you can throw it curveballs, it's going to come right back at you. And it grades you. It'll grade you
That's
and say,
great.
it's awesome.
And it's random,
And
right? It's not like the
oh,
same, right? It's
no,
because it's
it's
AI,
random.
so it's constantly random.
Yeah. I can be on a phone call. It's a different scenario now. I can
It's
be on a
great.
phone call. AI will pop in and say, here's Cliff's personality style. You're
Holy
not
crap.
connecting with him. He
Wow.
is a detailed, fact oriented person. David, you're talking big picture. You need to get to specifics. It's right on my screen. You can't see
That's
it,
wild.
but AI is telling me your behavioral style. It's just amazing what goes on. The tools that we've created to help people understand what's going on the other side and to become better than themselves. It's amazing. We just rolled out 4 new tools this conference. AI tools.
AI. Yeah, good for
hmm
you. I wasn't sure
hmm
how you're going to answer that, honestly. Something like I'm from Long Island. I actually interviewed many, many years ago with Dale Carnegie. And I
Okay,
thought Dale Carnegie was like, we talk about a guy ahead of his time. I really thought he
of
was way
course.
ahead of his time. And I think it's still incredibly
Yeah,
relevant
legend,
today.
legend.
Right?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
agree with you.
no question.
But I do feel like they didn't stay cutting edge the way you are. I felt like they just got left behind. It's just my thought.
Well, the buyer journey's changed dramatically. That's in. You said, hey, tell me about the dummy curve. That's not, nope.
That's
We've
right.
changed that. The AI is in. I think for us, any franchise company, you don't want to be Blockbuster. You don't
That's
want to be
right.
Blockbuster. So 50,000 people a year for a long time, you have to take your concepts and don't let your pride get in the way and say, that's the way we've done it. That's the way we're always going to do it. But say, okay, well, how do we serve the sellers and leaders of today using our philosophy? And get your ego somewhere else. Let's figure that out. And that's what we've done. We have morphed 7 times since I've been in charge.
Wow. What we're approaching, I could do another hour with you going through just the principles. I happen to be fascinated by selling, and I also believed, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I think it's the greatest profession ever, is the ability to
I agree.
sell and influence people, solve problems, sell good feelings, sell solutions. I just
Hmm.
think it's the greatest profession. I also believe that everything begins after the sale is made. I always hear these people, they're so wonderful at operations and they're wonderful at training and they're wonderful at all this stuff. And it's like nothing begins until I sell something. And
Yeah.
then you guys can operate and train
Right.
and support, right? It's like, so I just
Hmm.
love the being the tip of the spear, being the rainmaker. I do. I think it's the greatest profession. I could
There's
go another
13 million
hour
of us in
minimum.
the US.
Wow,
13
you
million is the
quantify
biggest
it.
profession. Biggest
Wow.
profession.
Okay.
Most
That I
money
didn't know.
made, largest profession, and the most money made is in sales.
Wow.
And yet society says, Cliff, when you're unqualified to do anything else, maybe you should be a salesperson.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I know. Go sell something. Right. So
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah.
I want to talk about you're a unique leader to be on the show because you've been at this a long time with one company, not bouncing around. I get a guy on a call with a new logo on his chest, and you know what I mean. You go
I
to the
do.
franchise shows and
Hmm.
the embroidery changes.
Hmm.
What I want to just a little deeper dive here as my final question with you. Your legacy, like what like you're leaving behind a Sandler legacy at some point. Is it a
Hmm.
legacy to your children? Is there a succession plan in place? Like, what do you want to be known for as you exit? Ultimately, at some point, you'll exit the company. Talk to me about that.
Uh, I just had this conversation with somebody last night. My hope, my goal is if you think about the number of people that we have impacted as franchisees and think about the number of people they've impacted, right? Like,
Yeah.
so for instance, that to me is fantastic. If I can take somebody who has trusted their family's future in buying a Sandler franchise and they hear from their clients, Sandler has changed my life. I can put my kids through college without debt. I can pay for a wedding. And you guys come to me as franchisees saying, I've had the best ride. I've loved my job. I've got people now that are in their 70s still doing it. Now, are they working 60 hours a week? No, they're working 3 days a week,
Right.
but they're not going to leave. I did not make this a family business. I did
Okay.
not make it. All my kids have been trained. They're all rock
Okay.
stars using Sandler, and they all worked here for a period of time, right? Because in the warehouse, and they worked their way through, so they
Hmm.
became little Sandler people. But to me, I want to build a business that is sustainable. When I'm sitting somewhere at 85 years old,
Hmm.
and we are the largest, and we are now we're going to be we're growing Sandler, right? So we're actually putting Sandler into a portfolio that is designed. Again, we have two sides of the business, franchise side and the other side, which is how do you serve a business owner start to finish, not
Right.
just sales. We're known for sales, but how do you increase the effectiveness and efficiency of businesses and everyone that works for them? And so we have gone way beyond sales since I
Right.
started. And I just think, if we can continue that, that would be an awesome legacy. When I go through an airport with the broderie, right? The broderie in Sandler, I always get stopped. Oh, hey, I know
Yeah.
Sandler. And they throw it out a rule. Dummy curve.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Right.
I was in the
That's
Sistine
great.
Chapel, well, with my family, and I hear Sandler, Sandler. They're like,
Unreal.
unreal, unbelievable.
That's
And they saw
cool.
me from videos. To me, the ability to impact that many people's lives,
Yeah.
you can't, it's just awesome.
I agree. You've increased people's take-home pay. You've
It's great.
allowed people to advance through their career. I mean, think of the legacy you're leaving behind. You're like the
It's awesome.
greatest educator. I mean, it's one thing to teach a kid, and it's like, all right, the kid's doing really
Yeah.
good, and then he goes on to become an engineer. Like, but then they get it in front of you, right, in your company.
When I talk to franchisees at their office in front of their clients, the impact that they have on their local marketplace is
Yeah,
humbling. People come up and they're just hugging them, and I'm like, gosh, that's so cool. They could care less about me. They're like just thanking that trainer and the franchisee. And to me, that's the greatest thing because it's not about Dave. It's not about Sandler. It's about the local representation of what
that's right.
Sandler is, which is our franchise network.
That's right. You've been a great guest. I cannot thank you enough for taking your time and spending an
Yeah,
hour
thank you.
with us. Yeah, I think it was loaded with just valuable content. Anyone listening in, whether you're listening in to purchase a franchise or you found yourself on this pod, just saying, man, I just got an education on sales, and now someone could go out and purchase your book or books. I just think it's invaluable. And you've been a great guest, and I really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks
Thank
for having me.
you. Got it, Dave. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss out on more great content. And if you're considering investing in a franchise, whether it's the brand you featured today or another opportunity, we're here to help. Visit us at francity.com. That's FRANOCITY.com. We love to help you take that next step towards business ownership.